Well, Obama said, if you want to know the kinds of policies I'll enact as president, you should look at the people I surround myself with. Well, we have tried to do that on this program, and we keep getting hammered for it. I don't know why. We're taking the advice of the President of the United States. Scott Baker is here. He is the co-founder of Breitbart TV and the co-host of Breitbart TV's The B-Cast. Okay, Scott, you and I were talking, last week at some point?
Exactly.
And the whole media has this Van Jones story wrong.
Did they cover it?
No, they didn't cover it. But the parts they covered were meaningless. About the Republicans saying the a-hole thing, or even, I think,
Bush being a crackhead.
Yeah, or the truthers, to me, shows that he is unstable and whatever. But that's not even the scariest part to me. What is it? What is it that they're missing?
Well, I've done some thinking about this because, we put up a lot of clips of Van Jones. You probably got sick of them because you couldn't even keep track.
I know.
But I remembered something that Charles Krauthammer said last week. He said this debacle is a reflection of the boss, right? And his radical relationships over decades of Obama. And I really started to focus on the deep parts of this when I heard Barack Obama's close advisor, Valerie Jarrett, praising Van Jones.
Let's play that clip. Here is Valerie Jarrett praising Van Jones.
How many of you guys know Van Jones? Van Jones is... Ooh.
This is his house, apparently.
Van Jones, all right. So, Van Jones, we were so delighted to be able to recruit him into the White House. We've been watching him really for, he's not that old, but for as long as he's been active out in Oakland and all of the ways that he has, the creative ideas that he has. And so now we have captured that, and we have all of that energy and enthusiasm in the White House. And
she likes him. And, a lot of people, they might have seen Valerie Jarrett and they're like, who's Valerie Jarrett? I didn't even know who Van Jones was.
Right.
Even some decent news junkies who know who Rahm Emanuel is and David Axelrod might not realize that Valerie Jarrett is kind of like one of those Karl Rove or Karen Hughes kind of figures.
The New York Times said that she's instrumental in all policies, but she's fingerprintless.
Yeah, they put her on the cover of the magazine at Obama's BFF. So I thought here, for purposes of illustration, let's take a look at relationships, like a political genealogy. Is that a fair?
Yeah.
And I brought a little show and tell.
Okay, good. I said dumb it down for me. You go ahead and take it up to the chalkboard.
Okay.
Your theory is Chicago is central. I believe Chicago is central when it comes to corruption, which is what we're up to. But you're going in a different direction on not just corruption.
Yeah, let's just look at how did Van Jones come to happen? Why did he seem, as Krauthammer said, perfectly mainstream to these people, right? When we know, you don't need me to go over all the things he said that were radical.
Yeah.
So just looking at Valerie Jarrett and how she came to admire him. Now, Valerie Jarrett has big street cred in Chicago. In fact, they call her Chicago royalty.
Okay.
So we're going to do a little royal family here.
All right.
This is not Pam Key over at Naked Emperor News, who's a contributor on our BCast show. She's a great illustrator. So we've turned Valerie Jarrett into a princess. We're going to make her the princess here.
All right.
All right.
Now she's best friends with Michelle and Barack.
Well, I think that's important because it's do you really see Rahm Emanuel and Michelle Obama hanging out talking about the J. Crew collection?
No.
No, she's the one that hired Michelle Obama in the mayor's office in Chicago back when Michelle was just engaged to a guy named Barack Obama.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So you look at her and you say, well, if she's, Chicago, royalty, what do we know about her? Well, that's her mom, Barbara Bowman, and this is her dad, James Bowman. Her mom, Barbara Taylor Bowman. Taylor is the grandfather. He was an architect. They named one of the biggest housing projects in Chicago after him. Now, Valerie Jarrett's a lawyer, a businesswoman. She was running a real estate development orchestration. Barbara Bowman was an educator, child education specialist. A lot of history here in education, in housing development.
Okay.
Now, Barbara started an organization called the Erickson Institute. They needed a chairman of the board. So they got one. We're going to put him right here. He's kind of the godfather of Chicago politics.
Where is
and
he
relationships.
From? What is
Thomas Ayers was the CEO of Consolidated Edison, and he was involved in all kinds of causes around Chicago on the board of Northwestern, and very involved with Barbara on the Erickson Institute.
Okay.
Now, let's see. If she's the princess, and we're going to make him the king, and then we need a prince.
What is the
James Bowman is Barbara. I'm going to come back to him. James Bowman is the father.
Okay.
Now, I said Thomas Ayers is the CEO at Consolidated Edison. Did that name ring a bell? Yeah,
is he
exactly.
The
father of Bill Ayers. Now we have a prince. Right? This is the Bill Ayers who teaches at the University of Illinois, the Chicago campus, long associations. This is the one, it was the meeting in his house where Barack Obama launched his political career.
Got it. That he doesn't, he didn't know that he was even part of the Weather Underground or anything.
No, Bobby should be sure not.
Got it.
Now,
any doubt that Valerie knows Bill Ayers
it would be
real well.
Very hard to think that they did not.
Okay.
Now, you look at this generation, and as I said, these are long relationships.
Yeah.
And they mean something.
Got it.
Because you even look and you say, Valerie Jarrett, her father-in-law, put him up there, Vernon Jarrett, pioneering black journalist, columnist for the Chicago Tribune. But when you go way back, when you go back to the 40s, when he was writing for the Chicago Defender and was involved in backing a lot of very socialistic causes, or causes that were even dominated by communist groups at the time.
Okay.
And in fact, he was on a committee, a labor committee, that was very dominated by the communists. And there was another guy that was on that committee with him. His name is Frank Marshall Davis. In fact, he also...
Whoa.
Are you clear so far? Are we good?
Whoa, yeah. Hang on just a second. Frank Marshall Davis, the mentor of Barack Obama.
Well, now you get it.
The communist.
Yeah.
Hang on. Let that sit there for a second, and we'll be right back. Hang on.